Hi everyone, I'm the Constitution of the United States, and this is my Draw My Life. Let's take a trip back in time to the early days of the United States. I was adopted in Philadelphia on September 17, 1787, making me 231 years old, but I've been told I don't look a day over 230. Now odds are you've heard of me, but I'm not the first Constitution that the United States have had. That honor would go to my good-for-nothing brother, the Articles of Confederation. The country was coming hot off the Revolutionary War when the Articles of Confederation came into the scene, but he didn't last long. To be fair, no one gave him any power in the first place. He couldn't collect taxes, he couldn't regulate trade. I mean, he wasn't even able to put up a fight against a small group of farmers in Massachusetts, let alone run a whole country. So that's when they came up with the idea for me. Of course, it's not like I just showed up one day out of the blue. I had to take some time to find myself first. What was I going to be? What kind of government would I create? Big or small? Should there be equal representation or different numbers for different states? What was going to be done about slavery? Some of these issues took a while to figure out, and we had to wait another 78 years for that last question to be finally answered. It wasn't easy, but after months and months of debate, putting things in and taking things out, I started to look like what I look like today. This was made possible by a strong set of principles, which are the most important parts of who I am. First, my government would be limited, only being able to do what I say it can do. Second, people have the right to change me or get rid of me altogether if they want. Third, everyone, no matter what, has to follow the same laws. Fourth, power would be divided, with some given to the federal government and some given to the states. Fifth, there would be an independent court to make sure no one abuses the system. The sixth and final principle is checks and balances. This means that the different parts of the government share powers, so if one part tries to break the rules, the other two can check or limit its power. Now that you have an idea of where I come from, who am I? And what makes me me? Let's start at the beginning, the preamble. Think of it as the introduction, 52 words that outline exactly what I'm about. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Think of this as the why. By having the preamble, people know that I'm here for all the people, to keep the peace, provide justice, and make sure that everyone is taken care of. Moving on, you'll notice that I'm organized into 7 parts, called articles. Each of these 7 articles describes a different part of how my government works, making it pretty easy to find your way around. For instance, let's say you wanted to know how long a senator serves. All you have to do is find Article 1, Section 3, to find out that a senator's term is 6 years long. In fact, while we're on the topic of Article 1, let's just jump right into it. Article 1 is my longest article, and it's about the legislative branch of the government. This may sound a little complicated, but all you need to remember is that this is part of the government that makes laws. The group of people that makes these laws are called Congress, and it's split into 2 parts, the Senate and the House of Representatives. To understand these 2 groups, we have to take a look back at when I was being made. One of the big issues at the time was trying to figure out how states would be represented. On the one hand, bigger states with more people wanted representation based on population. On the other hand, smaller states wanted the same number of representatives for every state, so that no one state had more power than another. There was a lot of arguing, and I thought that was never going to be finished. But they found a compromise, deciding that the House of Representatives would have representation based on population, and the Senate would have equal representation. As it stands now, the House has 435 members, and the Senate has 100, 2 for every state. In order to run for the House of Representatives, you have to be at least 25 years old, you have to be an American citizen for at least 7 years, and you have to live in the state you want to represent. Each representative serves for 2 years, then it is up to be elected again. The rules to be senator are similar except that you have to be at least 30 and have been a citizen for at least 9 years, in addition to living in the state that you want to represent. Each senator serves for 6 years and then is up for re-election. As I said before, the legislative branch makes the laws for the country, but how exactly does that happen? Well, as any fan of Schoolhouse Rock can tell you, a new law starts out with something called a bill. A bill can start in either the House of Representatives or the Senate. If a bill is voted on and passed by both houses, it goes to the president, who can choose to pass it or reject it, which is called a veto. If a bill is vetoed, it goes back to Congress, who can override that veto with a 2/3 majority. Once a bill is passed, it becomes law. The rest of Article 1 describes the powers that Congress has and the limits of those powers, an example of my principle of limited government. Article 2 is all about the executive branch of the government. The person in charge of this branch is called the president, whose job is to make sure that the laws Congress passes are put into place. There are several things needed to become president. You must be at least 35 years old, must be a naturally born U.S. citizen, and you must have lived in the United States for 14 years. The president is elected every 4 years. The president has many important jobs, some of the most important being commander-in-chief of the military, creating treaties with foreign powers, and appointing people to lead the different departments of the executive branch. When I was written, America was coming off of over a century of living under a king, which didn't end too peacefully. So when the role of the president was being designed, they wanted to make sure it wasn't going to just be another king. To do this, Congress was given the ability to impeach or to remove the president for certain illegal actions like treason and bribery. Article 3 is all about the judicial branch of the government, headed by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court meets to decide whether or not laws go against what I say and to judge if the rights of the people are being violated. There are 9 members, called justices, who are nominated by the president and serve for life. The Supreme Court is able to hear cases that involve, among other things, treaties, federal law, and of course, me. One of the biggest problems before I came around were differences in state laws. To solve this issue, Article 4 says that all states should honor other states' laws. By doing this, we can avoid conflict between different states. Although I'd like to say I'm fine just the way I am, the truth is that nobody's perfect. For that reason, Article 5 states that I can be changed or amended. For an amendment to be approved by Congress, it must have a 2/3 vote from both houses. Another route to proposing amendments is by having 2/3 of the states ask for a convention, where, if 3/4 approve, the amendment will be ratified. The United States, as you probably know, is a big country. And as with any big country, there can be differences between national laws and state laws. That's where Article 6 comes into play, stating that the federal laws are the supreme law of the land, more important than any state law. I was finally written, but the process of my creation wasn't over yet. To go into effect, I had to be ratified by 9 of the original 13 states. It took months of debate, sweat, and probably more than a few tears. My final draft was signed on September 17th, 1787. I was finally ready to be the law of the land. As much as I like to say that the ratification was the end of it, it soon became clear that I was, let's say, lacking in certain areas. To solve this, a set of 10 amendments were created, called the Bill of Rights. The first part of my Bill of Rights is called, fittingly, the First Amendment. Guaranteeing personal freedoms is a major concern of many. So this amendment promises that no law can ever be created that takes away people's freedom of speech and religion, the freedom of press, and the freedom to peacefully assemble and petition the government. One of the most talked about amendments put forward in my Bill of Rights is the Second Amendment, the right of the people to bear arms. The colonists, due to their experiences, were pretty uneasy about having someone rule over them in fear of corruption. So in case if the government became too powerful and corrupt, this amendment would give power to the citizens to create militia and own guns to fight. The people who created me lived under the tyranny of the British ruler King George, and they hated him. Not least of which because of the Quartering Act, in which colonists were forced to house British soldiers. To make sure this never happens again, my Third Amendment prevents the government from housing soldiers in citizen homes. No one wants someone barging into your house, and if they do, they better have a good reason. To prevent this, my Fourth Amendment protects against any unreasonable searches and seizures from taking place without a warrant. My Fifth Amendment makes sure that the government cannot harass people accused of a crime. Property cannot be taken from the accused. There has to be a good reason to have a trial, and the accused can't have their natural rights taken away. It also protects people from incriminating themselves and from being tried for the same crime twice. My Sixth Amendment exists so the government cannot arrest someone unfairly. Citizens convicted of a crime have to be told what they are being charged with and are given the same rights that every U.S. citizen is provided. This amendment deals with the rights of people being sued. If someone is being sued for over a certain amount of money, my Seventh Amendment gives the right for a civil case to be tried by a jury. The severity of the punishment should match the severity of the crime. Even criminals deserve a fair punishment. For that reason, my Eighth Amendment prohibits cruel and unusual punishments, which encompasses excessive bail and fines. A lot of people thought that the Bill of Rights were unnecessary, since they found them to be redundant and that it could cause harms. People could do anything they want unless it was directly stated as unlawful in the Constitution. To give reassurance to the framers of the Constitution, My Ninth Amendment states that the rights listed in the Bill of Rights are not the only ones that exist. People have unspoken rights too. This amendment was made to reaffirm the democratic status of the United States, that as many rights as the federal government gets, the people will never be forgotten. My 10th Amendment states that all powers not specifically given to the United States government are to be given to the states and the people. Well, now you know the story of my life. Although there were a lot of hardships and struggles in creating me, it was all worth it. Now, whenever you see me, whether it be on the news or even your history class, you might think twice about the frameworks of our government.